Hi, or should I say ciao? I feel like there's no concept of time anymore, but since it is the weekend today, I'm celebrating by staying in my sweats. I hope that you are finding good ways to pass the time and getting out to get some fresh air, and also looking forward to chapter 4 of Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera. I am. So here we go. Chapter 4 is called The Obsidian Mound. When she reached the top of the saddle between the two mountains, it began to snow. Makina had never seen snow before, and the first thing that struck her as she stopped to watch the weightless crystals raining down was that something was burning. One came to perch on her eyelashes. It looked like a stack of crosses or the map of a palace, a solid and intricate marvel at any rate, and when it dissolved a few seconds later, she wondered how it was that some things in the world, some countries, some people, could seem eternal when everything was actually like that miniature ice palace, one of a kind, precious, fragile. She felt a sudden stab of disappointment, but also a slight subsiding of the fear that had been building since she'd versed from home. On the other side of the mountains was the truck Chucho had told her about. She went up to it, opened the passenger door, and said, "Are you H's man?" The driver jumped out of his skin, then tried to recover his hard-boiled slouch, upped his nose as if to say, "That's right," and finally jerked his head to signal, "Get in." On the way, the driver turned to look at her every little while, as though hoping she'd try to talk to him so he could refuse. But Makina had no interest in the challenge. She should have been exhausted, but what she felt was an overwhelming impatience. She turned to the window to look out without seeing. If she didn't get back soon, what would become of all the people who had no way of communicating with their kith and kin? She had to get back, because Cora was counting on her. And what about the switchboard? How would it look and feel without her? Aye, the guilt, reducing reality to a clenched fist with set hours. The city was an edgy arrangement of cement particles and yellow paint. Signs prohibiting things thronged the streets, leading citizens to see themselves as ever protected, safe, friendly, innocent, proud, and intermittently bewildered, blithe, and buoyant. Salt of the only earth worth knowing. They flourished in supermarkets, cornucopias where you could have more than everyone else, or something different, or a newer brand, or a loaf of bread a little bigger than everyone else's. Makina just dented cans and sniffed bottles and thought it best to verse, and it was when she saw the Anglo gaggle at the self-checkouts that she noticed how miserable they looked in front of those little digital screens, and the way they nearly jumped every time the machine went bleep at them, and how on versing out to the street they sought to make amends for their momentary one-up by becoming wooden again so as not to offend anyone. Out on the concrete and steel girder plain, though, she sensed another presence straight off, scattered about like bolts fallen from a window, on street corners, on scaffolding, on sidewalks, fleeting looks of recognition quickly concealed and then evasive. These were her compatriots, her homegrown, armed with work, builders, florists, loaders, drivers, playing it sly so as not to let on any shared objective, and instead, just there to take orders. They were the same as back home, but with less whistling and no begging. She was seduced by something less clear-cut as she wandered by the restaurants, unfamiliar sweetness and spiciness, concoctions that had never before passed her lips or her nose, rapturous fried feasts. Places serving food that was strange but with something familiar mixed in, something recognizable in the way the dishes were finished off. So she visited the restaurants too, with the brevity imposed by glaring managers who guessed she's not here to eat, and it wasn't until the fourth restaurant that she realized they were here too. More armed than any place else, cooks and helpers and dishwashers ruling the food at the farthest outposts. All cooking is Mexican cooking, she said to herself, and then she said, ha, it wasn't true, but she liked saying it just the same. The driver jerked up his palms when he saw Makina take out the package from Mr. H. "You don't give nothing to me. Didn't you know that?" He dropped her on a deserted street and said, "Here's where they'll tell you where to take it." Since there was nobody around, she ambled through a supermarket and sniffed restaurants. When she returned, a flower store had opened. An old man was sitting at the entrance, resting one hand on a cane and bringing a piece of bread to his mouth with the other. Makina planted herself in front of him. They looked at each other. Again Makina made as if to take the packet out, but the old man said, "Wait. Go clean up first, and then I'll take you." With his cane, he pointed to a little door at the back of the store. Makina went through it, washed her hands and face. The wound on her ribs was dry, and when she rubbed the soap across it, it hardly even stung. When she burst from the bathroom, the old man was standing up. "Come with me," he said. "See those men?" McKenna saw two guys in a black ride with silver rims. "Cops, wondering who you are," he went on. "We're going to walk till they get sidetracked." They began walking. The car followed close behind, suddenly accelerated and disappeared, but soon returned to follow them at a distance. "I'm taking you to the stadium," the old man said. "If they stop trailing us, you hand it over there. Meantime, I'll tell you about your kin." McKenna was overcome by foreboding. "Is he dead?" No, alive and kicking like a mule. He's fine. You'll find him changed, but still, he got here okay. Like you, he brought a little something from Mr. H, and things got rough, but then he went off on his business." "Do you know where?" The old man said, "Help me walk." McKenna took his arm, and the old man smoothly slipped her a piece of paper with his other hand. "Address is right here." They kept walking. The black car slowed beside them. The occupants eyeballed for a few seconds and took off. "Think it's safe?" McKenna asked. "Don't know, but it's got to be done." The stadium loomed before them. "So, what do they use that for?" "They play," said the old man. "Every week the Anglos play a game to celebrate who they are." Max is scratching the furniture this is on. Maybe he's going to make a cameo. "Oh, right. Think it's safe?" McKenna asked. "Don't know, but it's got to be done." The stadium loomed before them. "So what do they use that for?" "They play," said the old man. "Every week the Anglos play a game to celebrate who they are." He stopped, raised his cane, and fanned the air. "One of them whacks it, then sets it off like it was a trip around the world. To every one of the bases out there. You know the Anglos have bases all over the world, right? Well, the one who whacked it runs from one to the next while the others keep taking swings to distract their enemies. And if he doesn't get caught, he makes it home, and his people welcome him home with open arms and cheering." "Do you like it?" "Me? I'm just passing through." "How long you been here?" "Going on 50 years. Here we are." They were standing at one of the doors to the stadium. The old man gave a whistle. The door opened. The old man said, "Get it over with," and turned away. The darkest kid McKenna had ever seen in her life pointed to a corridor. She walked down it toward the light. At the end, she was instantly overcome by the sight of a vast expanse. Two rival visions of beauty. The bottom, an immense green diamond rippling in its own reflection, and above, embracing it, tens of thousands of folded black chairs, an obsidian mound barbed with flint, sharp and glimmering. She was standing there, dazzled, when from other tunnels around her more men emerged, 10 or 15 or 30 all at once, all black, but some blacker than others, some sinewy as if they'd grown up in mountain air, others puffy like aquatic animals, many bald, but a few with long matted hair down to their waists, all looking at her and walking toward her, calm and cool, but with faces that clearly conveyed they were serious motherfuckers. "Don't let my associates scare you," she suddenly heard behind her, in Latin tongue. "They're not such tough sons of bitches, just had to learn to look like it." Down the corridor she walked. A man limped nearer, his features becoming clearer as he was gradually bathed in light. His blazing blonde hair was streaked with orange highlights. He held a cigar in one hand and wore mirrored shades. McKenna had never laid eyes on him before, but there was no mistaking who he was. Mr. P, the fourth top dog, had fled the little town after a turf war with Mr. H, and every once in a while you'd hear how one way or another they were goading each other from afar. What had McKenna gotten herself into? Did Mr. P think he could mess with Mr. H by messing with her? "You got nothing to fear from me neither, girl," said Mr. P, suspecting her guts were churning. "And not because Mr. H and I have made peace. We do business, sure, but who says that's not just another way to eat the dish cold?" McKenna noticed that from his belt hung a long, thin knife, and that Mr. P patted it nonstop. Very slowly, she at last pulled out the packet that was for him. Mr. P held out his hand, weighed up the package without taking his eyes off her, and passed it to one of his associates. He patted and patted his knife and smiled at McKenna while the associates opened the package, closed the package, and in Anglo said, "We're cool." Mr. P, though, kept leering and smiling at McKenna and patting his dangling knife, and she wanted to go now, but she couldn't muster enough of a voice for even the first syllable. "Wouldn't you like to come work for me, child?" asked Mr. P, eyeing her crotch. "I'm here for my brother." "Of course, the brother." Mr. P stopped looking, scratched his chin, and repeated, "The brother, the brother." His eyes scanned the stadium with idle curiosity. He turned, and the associates began to verse leisurely down the tunnels until Makina was all alone. Ooh, that's the end of the chapter. We're about halfway through. So thanks for tuning in. I miss all of you, and I will see you here tomorrow. Take care. Bye.